Rajasic planets and Satvic Nakshatras, Part 1. When Rajasic planets like Venus and Mars occupy Satvic Nakshatras, the result is a fusion of desire and purity, action and wisdom. Satvic Nakshatras, ruled by Mercury and Jupiter, carry energies of clarity, ethics, and spiritual evolution. When Rajasic planets enter these refined lunar zones, they become tempered, elevated, and purpose-driven. The native still expresses charisma, ambition, sensuality, or vitality, but now it's often channeled into healing, learning, or serving something greater than themselves. This combination produces individuals who refine desire through discipline, or who use creativity and power to protect, guide, or enlighten. Unlike raw Rajasic expressions, which can be restless or ego-driven, Rajasic planets and Satvic Nakshatras carry a kind of dharmic polish. These are people who may be artists with a mission, warriors with a moral compass, or lovers who seek soulful connection over indulgence. They integrate outer movement with inner truth. Let's take the first house. When Venus is placed in Revati or Punarvasu, the person often presents with an aura of grace, kindness, and refined taste, yet there's also humility and emotional sensitivity. Venus in Punarvasu, ruled by Jupiter, beautifies the personality with optimism, generosity, and care for others. They may be drawn to healing arts, aesthetic careers with a humanistic focus, or spiritual relationships. In Revati, Venus turns artistic power into empathy. These people radiate soft magnetism and are often drawn to music, dance, devotional art, or compassionate leadership. If Mars is in Jeshta or Ashlesha in the first house, the raw warrior energy of Mars becomes sharpened with psychological or mystical depth. In Ashlesha, Mars can appear emotionally strategic or protective, often translating into deep personal control, survival instinct, or subtle power dynamics. But since Ashlesha is ruled by Mercury, a Satvic planet, Mars here often directs its fire inward, into mental mastery, protection of secrets, or shadow work. In Jeshta, Mars becomes a silent authority, someone who asserts without words, leads without dominance, and protects those who can't defend themselves. In the fifth house, which governs intelligence, creativity, and love expression, Venus in Vishaka or Revati gives profound artistic and romantic expression. Vishaka's dual rulership, Jupiter for Sattva, but with an undertone of Indra-Agni desire, makes Venus here passionate yet idealistic. These natives may express through intense but ethical relationships or through creativity that challenges injustice. In Revati, Venus becomes devotional. These individuals may use music, poetry, or storytelling as emotional healing for others. Their art has soul. Their love has sacrifice. Mars in Jyeshta or Ashlesha in the fifth produces strategic creators or defenders of sacred values. Their creative expression may involve martial arts, political activism, or intellectual games. Ashlesha can make Mars psychologically sharp and sometimes controlling in love, but when evolved, these individuals become masterful energy workers or trauma-informed protectors. In the fifth, they may channel their intensity into structured education, parenting, or legacy building. In the ninth house, the energy becomes deeply dharmic. Venus in Punarvasu or Vishaka in the ninth often creates spiritual seekers who value beauty and truth. They might be travelers, teachers, or lovers of multicultural art. Their belief systems emphasize equality, justice, and aesthetic harmony. They may explore divine femininity, tantra, or bhakti traditions with intellectual reverence. These individuals could easily become spiritual performers, healers, or peacemakers, often guided by a vision of love rooted in higher law. When Mars is placed in Jeshta or Punarvasu in the ninth, the spiritual warrior emerges. In Jyeshta, Mars takes on the mantle of hidden power, serving dharma not with fire, but with discipline and resilience. These natives may confront corruption, protect sacred teachings, or fight for ancestral truth. In Punarvasu, Mars channels bold action into healing the world, becoming a protector of culture, language, or education. There is both fire and forgiveness in their spiritual path. They do not preach passively, they defend and uphold ideals with strength. Overall, Rajasic planets and Satvic Nakshatras point to souls who want to act, love, and fight, but with grace and guidance. They are here to refine Rajas through the lens of dharma, using beauty, sensuality, courage, or power to uplift others. These individuals are not about passive enlightenment, they are about active purification. Whether through performance, protection, design, or discipline, they serve as bridges between the material world and the ethical compass of Sattva. Their presence teaches us that desire, when aligned with truth, becomes devotion. Rajasic planets in Satvic Nakshatras Part 2. When Rajasic planets like Venus and Mars are placed in Satvic Nakshatras across houses like the 1st, 5th, and 9th, they don't lose their power, but they gain refinement. The Sattvic environment acts as a filter, channeling the assertive or desirous nature of these planets into purposeful, dharmic, and sometimes even devotional forms. These combinations often create people who act, create, or attract, not for egoic gratification, but to serve something more timeless, sacred, or meaningful. Let's look at how these energies unfold nakshatra by nakshatra. In the 1st house, when Mars is placed in Punarvasu, the raw assertiveness of Mars is softened and made wise. Punarvasu, ruled by Jupiter, brings the theme of renewal, learning, and dharmic optimism. Here, Mars becomes a restorer, not a destroyer. The person may have a strong desire to protect ideals, rebuild broken systems, or defend the vulnerable. They act with courage, but not recklessness, making them ideal reformers, life coaches, or spiritual activists. Their personality is warm, approachable, and mission-driven, often embodying the archetype of the peaceful warrior. Venus in Ashlesha in the 1st house carries a hypnotic emotional magnetism, but in a sattvic environment, it becomes healing and deeply intuitive. Ashlesha's coiled serpentine symbolism shows depth, memory, and emotional intelligence. Venus here often gives a mystical or tantric aesthetic, someone drawn to psychological art, subtle healing, or sacred sensuality. Their charm is subtle, penetrating, and emotionally layered. These natives are not superficial flirts. They are soul weavers, drawing others into emotional truth and transformation. In the 5th house, when Venus is placed in Jyeshtha, love becomes a tool of karmic power and transformation. Jyeshtha gives secretive, mature, and protector-like traits. With Venus here, the person might use creative or romantic experiences to reveal emotional patterns or bring maturity to relationships. Artistic expression is dignified, timeless, and emotionally charged. Their storytelling, poetry, or design is never frivolous. It's cathartic. Their love life is rarely simple, but it's often spiritually significant, involving karmic contracts or spiritual awakening. Mars in Ashlesha in the 5th can create intensity in love, but also sharp perception and energetic clarity in creativity. These people may have brilliant minds for psychology, systems design, or therapeutic strategy. They don't express in loud gestures, but their subtle impact is undeniable. Mars here fights with emotional intelligence, and when integrated, this placement creates trauma-informed educators, emotionally resilient artists, or mentors who protect children or truth-tellers in some form. In the 9th house, when Venus is placed in Revati, we get a rare blend of bhakti and beauty. Revati's Piscean nature, ruled by Mercury but deeply soaked in moksha energy, purifies Venus's desire into devotional service. This individual may feel a calling to merge art with spirit, becoming a devotional musician, a spiritual counselor, or a cultural visionary. Their travels, teachings, and partnerships are often soaked in grace. Love becomes sacred here, not about possession, but about transcendence. Mars in Vishaka, or Jyeshtha in the 9th, creates an individual who is fierce about their beliefs, but also deeply ethical. Vishaka's Jupiter rulership gives Mars clarity and action, while Jyeshtha adds psychic discipline and protection. The native may work as a legal defender, spiritual warrior, or truth-seeking journalist. There's a willingness to confront hypocrisy and defend dharma, not with noise, but with precision and purpose. They may be protectors of sacred knowledge or whistleblowers in corrupt institutions. In all of these placements, the Rajasic planet doesn't get neutralized, it gets sanctified. Mars doesn't stop fighting. It begins to fight for justice, clarity, or higher truth. Venus doesn't stop desiring. It starts desiring union, beauty with purpose, or relationships that mirror divine harmony. These natives teach us that Rajas is not a flaw, it is a force. And when filtered through Sattva, it becomes sacred movement. Ultimately, Rajasic planets and Sattvic Nakshatras often give the person a refined fire. They are creators with conscience, lovers with loyalty, warriors with wisdom. Their outer life may look dynamic, but it is always tethered to a deeper source. They're not chasing, they're contributing. They do not simply burn with ambition, they illuminate paths for others. Tamasic planets in Satvic Nakshatras, Part 1. When Tamasic planets like Saturn and Ketu occupy Satvic Nakshatras, the result is a fascinating tension between stillness and purity, discipline and idealism, contraction and expansion. Satvic Nakshatras, ruled by Mercury and Jupiter, are zones of clarity, spiritual intelligence, healing, and higher purpose. In contrast, Tamasic planets are associated with inertia, deep karmic memory, withdrawal, renunciation, and in the case of Saturn, time-bound responsibility and limitation. When these energies interact, we see souls who are tested not by desire, but by delay, detachment, and moral endurance. And through these trials, they gain depth, maturity, and spiritual gravity. These combinations produce individuals who may carry a solemn or sober expression of spiritual clarity. They are often burdened with karmic tasks that require them to live by Satvic principles, even when life doesn't offer comfort, ease, or reward. Tamasic planets in these nakshatras often manifest as old souls, silent sages, or reluctant guides, people who don't preach ideals but live them silently, sometimes painfully. These natives embody truth that has been earned, not just studied. Let's begin with the first house, the seat of personal identity. When Saturn is placed in Punarvasu or Revati, the person's personality is shaped by delayed blessings, early restrictions, or inherited responsibility, but also by a persistent moral compass. Saturn in Punarvasu may create a self-image that evolves after repeated losses or resets. These individuals are often protectors, teachers, or spiritual caregivers, but they carry inner burdens, learning patience, faith, and resilience over time. They shine later in life, once they've understood that Sattvic strength is quiet, not performative. Ketu in Vishaka, or Jyeshtha in the first, gives a sense of disconnection from identity or worldly roles. These individuals often feel outside their own lives, present yet detached. In Vishaka, Ketu intensifies the desire to overcome duality, to move beyond worldly ambition and into a focused spiritual path. In Jyeshtha, Ketu produces a quiet guardian, someone who understands power but prefers not to wield it. Their identity is shaped not by achievement, but by spiritual depth and invisible influence. In the fifth house, which governs creativity, romance, and intelligence, Saturn in Jyeshtha or Ashlesha slows down the expression of joy and love. But in Sattvic environments, Saturn becomes a refiner, not a suppressor. Saturn in Ashlesha may restrict emotional intimacy early on, creating control issues in love, but it also cultivates deep loyalty and intuitive mastery later. These individuals often excel in spiritual sciences, counseling, or writing, fields that require stillness, patience, and psychic boundaries. Ketu in Revati or Ashlesha in the fifth brings an innate detachment from romantic attachment or emotional drama. Love and creativity become tools for moksha, not just pleasure. Revati Ketu is a mystic artist or emotional minimalist, drawn to solitude, ritual, or sacred music. Ashlesha Ketu is psychologically deep but hard to access emotionally, someone who can guide others through emotional mazes but may struggle to express their own needs. Their karmic gift lies in soulful detachment, not escapism. In the ninth house, the house of dharma and higher wisdom, Saturn in Vishaka or Punarva creates individuals who have had to work hard to build faith. Their spiritual path may be marked by betrayal, long tests, or isolation. But through this comes the gift of spiritual authority that doesn't rely on performance. Saturn in Punarvasu can make the native a philosophical guide, someone who lives dharma quietly, with dignity. In Vishaka, Saturn may delay spiritual success, but ensures that when it comes, it's solid, deep, and anchored in truth. Ketu in Revati or Punarvasu in the ninth gives rise to detached seekers, souls who question religious dogma, wander from doctrine to doctrine, and eventually find truth through inner silence. Ketu in Revat often indicates past life mastery in spiritual or artistic disciplines. In this life, the native may avoid center stage but hold profound knowledge. Their dharma is not to be worshipped, but to guide others inward. In Punarvasu, Ketu dissolves the need for external belief and brings clarity through lived experience. These people don't believe, they know, often wordlessly. In all of these combinations, Tamasic planets slow down and test the Sattvic principles they inhabit. They force the person to earn their light through delays, renunciation, or emotional sobering. These individuals may appear simple, minimalistic, or quiet, but their aura carries a depth that speaks volumes. They don't preach, they persevere. They don't chase, they wait. And through this patient endurance, their Satvic essence becomes unshakable. Tamasic planets in Satvic Nakshatras are guardians of wisdom earned through stillness, not activity. They are vessels of sacred restraint, guiding others not by charisma, but by karmic integrity. Their lives may not look flashy, but they carry the essence of dharma lived silently and truth held unshakably. Tamasic planets in Satvic Nakshatras, Part 2. When Tamasic planets like Saturn and Ketu occupy Satvic Nakshatras in key houses like the 1st, 5th, and 9th, they challenge the native to live up to Satvic ideals, but not through ease or elevation, rather through endurance, karmic discipline, and detachment. The clarity of Jupiter or Mercury-ruled nakshatras offers light, but the Tamasic planets move through it like monks through fire, slow, heavy, but deeply transformative. These combinations don't just symbolize spiritual aspiration, they reflect the difficult road towards sattvic realization through inner purification and outer austerity. In the 1st house, when Saturn is in Punarvasu, the native often feels an early life identity crisis. Punarvasu, ruled by Jupiter, brings themes of restoration and dharma, but Saturn adds delay and detachment. Here, identity is rebuilt not through personal freedom, but through duty and self-restraint. These individuals may carry the role of protector or guide later in life, but their early journey often involves rejection, inadequacy, or failure. With time, they grow into quiet spiritual authorities, living examples of how patience becomes presence. If Ketu is in Ashlesha or Vishaka in the 1st, there's a psychic detachment from self-image. In Ashlesha, Ketu dissolves ego boundaries through emotional confusion or psychological complexity. Yet, this creates deeply intuitive individuals who may operate like emotional empaths, healers, or tantric transformers. In Vishaka, the detachment is more existential. The person may feel alienated from ambition, lost in spiritual seeking, and disinterested in social success. But this fuels a philosophical depth that eventually becomes a light for others. In the 5th house, Saturn in Jyeshtha or Ashlesha creates karmic blocks in expression, love, and joy, but also gives a unique maturity in navigating emotional depth. In Jyeshtha, Saturn creates serious-minded, loyal, and emotionally cautious individuals, those who may struggle to open up but become unshakable once committed. They often hold ancestral burdens related to romance, children, or creativity. But with effort, they become guardians of emotional wisdom, using their life experience to guide others in crisis. Ketu in Revati or Jyeshtha in the 5th leads to disinterest or detachment in romantic expression or creative performance. Love is spiritualized, not sensational. Revati Ketu may give musical or artistic talent, but the person often avoids attention or public visibility, preferring solitude or spiritual service. In parenting, they may act as karmic guides for their children, fostering spiritual growth more than worldly success. Ketu brings ancient soul memory and emotional protection. It can manifest as deep intuition or even psychic gifts, but often with loneliness. In the 9th house, which governs dharma and higher belief, Saturn in Vishaka or Vati creates philosophical realists, individuals who question blind faith and accept spiritual truth only through personal testing. Saturn in Vishaka indicates someone who may struggle with duality between spiritual desire and worldly responsibility. Over time, this gives rise to a person who integrates ambition with ethics, service with clarity. Revati Saturn often delays spiritual success, but the native ultimately becomes a guardian of truth, a karmic teacher who offers wisdom to those who've also struggled. Ketu in Punarvasu or Ashlesha in the 9th represents a spiritual dropout turned inner sage. These individuals may reject conventional religion or gurus, but not out of arrogance, rather from a soul-level knowing that truth must be lived, not taught. Punarvasu Ketu often reflects past life mastery of spiritual paths, now functioning with quiet detachment. These people teach without teaching. They serve simply through presence. Ashlesha Ketu carries the karmic imprint of occult learning or mystical paths. The native may work with healing modalities, mantra, or energy medicine, transmitting ancient wisdom through subtle vibration. Across all these placements, the Satvic wisdom of the nakshatra is grounded and humbled by Tamasic weight. These natives do not seek to shine, but their depth inevitably becomes a source of light. They often face restriction, rejection, or renunciation in the realms their nakshatra governs. But through it, they gain insight, grace, and inner authority. Their karma is to learn how to live the Satvic truth through Tamasic patience, to embody light not as philosophy, but as lived resilience. Tamasic planets in Satvic nakshatras mature late, but leave lasting impact. Their journey is not quick enlightenment, it is slow-burning evolution. They remind us that purity isn't just gifted, it's earned through silence, loss, and surrender. Whether as spiritual elders, emotional healers, or protectors of moral legacy, they embody the truth that dharma lived slowly is more powerful than truth spoken loudly.